My name is Chris Werry, and you're very welcome to join us for this third debate. Lots of interesting discussion about to take place. First of all, let me introduce who is around the table, and we're incredibly happy to have Joe Leinen with us. From Germany, President Martin Schulz opened his Euranet event saying that his concerns over some of the debates that were going on were very insular with countries and maybe could threaten the union. Maybe somebody will come up with some comments relative to that as well. So it certainly highlights the questions of our next debate, which is really, why do we need the European Union and how should we communicate about it? Principal guest, as I've said, MEP since 1999, Joe Leinen, a very strong promoter of green issues and chair of the Committee for Environment and Food Safety and Public Health. Am I right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
But most importantly, you bring to this particular discussion a lot of experience. And I think that sense of continuity is very welcome. So welcome to our debate.
Now, the European idea is one of the best ideas in our times. I think after the war, it was to make peace between people. We succeeded. And since you referred to green items, I think in the 21st century, it's to make peace between people and ecosystems and nature. And Europe started industrialization 200 years ago. Now we have to clean up the environment, and we are front runner. We have to be the model for us, but as well for others.
Well, what I'd like to do before we all start the full debate is introduce those that are around the table. First, from Poland, Karolina Werenz.
Welcome.
From Sweden, Robin Vochlin.
Nice to meet you.
And from Romania, Andreas Decut.
Hello.
First of all, let us just listen to a few short ideas that have come from the people on the street. So we have this very short clip to listen to.
You're now listening to UBB Radio online.
I think we need a European Union because it made a kind of bond between many countries, and this bond brought development and support for people that were in need. Personally, I very much like the programs and projects of the Union, especially the ones that involve students.
Well, in my opinion as a citizen, I feel that making part of the European Union, it's like being part of something bigger than my country. In another way, the European Union helped a lot of people in my country.
I think that being a part of the European Union provides us access to European funds for economic and cultural development, and with that we can also be a part of the global socialization.
You're now listening to UBB Radio online.
Just a few thoughts from some people, perhaps we should say in the street. Let us go to our first question from Karolina Werenz.
You have said what the European Union has been at the very beginning, but, let's talk now about what the EU is now. What do we really need the European Union for?
To defend our values. I think Europe has a lot of values that developed over the centuries, but as well to defend our interests. We are only a small part of this one world. And there are other interests in the world than ours. So I think together we are much stronger than any country alone.
Another question from Robin.
Yeah, speaking of that, and how much of the people's power should we move, or the power from the people should be moved? Here's my full question for you. With the recent developments in the European Union, the Irish and the Lisbon treatment, the Greeks and their own votation for their budget, and now I've heard that there was a proposition from Germany that the EU might apply someone to be in charge of the Greek budget. What's your thoughts about all this? Where is the EU heading? And is the EU taking steps away from nations' representations, democracy?
We have to imply the citizens. It should be done through the parliaments of all the member states. They are the citizen chambers elected directly as the European Parliament is the only institution directly elected. But as you could see, it is the executives who really decide and drive decisions forward. So our Parliament President, and I think this House, European Parliament, we try to catch up to say, hey, this is not on. If you decide about the future of the EU, it must be us, the citizen chamber, that is involved and implied. And this is a constant battle, because international policy is not really, let's say, like home policy, totally run on methods that we know. It's more a policy done by executives. But in the EU, we have a chance to reconnect it with the parliaments.
Convincing the public is a pretty difficult exercise, though, isn't it? Let's have Andrea's question.
Taking in consideration the current problems with the euro currency, how can we convince people to trust in Europe?
I hope that Europe comes out stronger out of this crisis than it went into the crisis, but there is no guarantee for it. In fact, we have built up huge deficits, and somebody has given the money. Let's say those on the financial markets, on the markets that give all these billions and billions. And after the crash of the Lehman Brothers Bank, they are afraid not to get their money back. So you could see there is an enormous nervousness among the creditors who give the money, whether they get their money back from European countries. And I would say without the European Union, some countries would already be bankrupt. And we are calling here in the European Parliament not only for a fiscal pact, that you have some discipline, that you follow some rules, but as well for a solidarity pact, that you help each other and to try to come out of this crisis together and not leaving one country alone.
I guess it's worth bringing in a comment from the internet at the moment. I see Mara Rusu. Lately, many gloomy predictions about the future of the European Union, and these opinions appear in the press all over Europe. How do you think this will affect people's perception in general over the EU? How do they know who to trust? And it's well put. It's a good point.
In fact, that's a good point, because I would be confused as a normal citizen, listening daily to the headlines and what I see on the TV, already the 15th summit since May 2010, and I would ask myself, where is that leading to? Is that the end? Is it continuing? What is happening? So there is a big confusion, and we need leadership in Europe. Unfortunately, we are not a state. We have not an elected president. We have not a government. We are a conglomeration of 27 governments and heads of states and governments who all speak for their own voice. And that's the big, let's say, challenge. Whether we can speak with one voice, whether we find a common direction to come out of this crisis, and whether we can show solidarity.
Solidarity, it's a word that's been used several times this afternoon by a number of people. We have more questions around the table, so let's take the fourth question, which also goes to Robin.
Yeah, let's continue about the effect about the crisis here. How do you think the European Union will be affected by this economical crisis? Will it still continue to stick together? Because there have been some rumors about a split in between northern and southern European countries.
Yeah, we have done 50 years of efforts to unite Europe. It is not really the time to split Europe again in north, south, or east or west. No, we have to keep this club of now 27 and soon 28, 29 together. What we have is a multi-speed Europe already now. Not everybody is doing everything at the same time. We have it with the border control, the Schengen system. Britain and Ireland, they feel that they need border controls, so they are not doing it at the same time. I hope some days, if I take the Eurostar from Brussels to London, I don't need control. And I find it silly, because they can't, let's say, avoid that immigration comes illegally. They don't avoid it by border control. Then we have the Eurozone. It was clear from the beginning, not all countries start the Euro at the same time. We have the cooperation in the military defense policy. Not everybody participates because still from the Cold War you have countries who feel neutral. I don't know what neutral means nowadays, but Sweden or Ireland, they feel that they are neutral. So multi-speed Europe is not a problem. Different Europes, where some don't want to do at all what others are doing, that would be a problem. And there I have a bit worry about Great Britain, to say it obviously, because the anti-European mood in Great Britain is growing. And one day they have to have a referendum and to decide, do we want to belong to this club or do we want to go out?
And so what is your vision or your utopia about the EU? Should it be more like a national state? Should it be more central governed?
No, it is not a question of will. I think that we are more pushed by problems than there is a political will. Look, we have terrorism, Al-Qaeda. And Europe had to come together to, let's say, build up all the systems you need to fight terrorism. And we did legislation as well as institutions that never would have come. Then we have climate change. We have a legislation on climate change. For example, the one directive that 20% of the energy supply must come from renewables. So Poland has 94% of energy supply by coal. They have to change. So this is a constraint from the outside. You have now globalization with new superpowers like China, which is the workplace, the factory of the world, and putting stress on many of our industries. So Europe has to have common policies. My answer to your question is, it is not a superstate or federal something. It is a lot of challenges in this modern time where we feel together we are stronger than everybody alone, and therefore you need common policies, and then you need common institutions and common rules. And of course, we are far beyond only of a common market. We are already, since years, a political union. And I think at all it is a very good thing because we all profit from it.
As somebody who works across Europe and a British citizen, I think the European Union is much to be praised. But I have to say, at risk of being guilty of treason, I agree with your earlier comment. Never mind. Maybe I shouldn't. But
and
I think Britain is a bad member
I'm
sometimes.
sure when you have a referendum that the Brits are known to be very pragmatic.
Yes.
And then when you really have a real debate, what are the advantages, the disadvantages, the majority, I hope, will say, yes, our place in the world is in Europe. It's not somewhere in the Atlantic or across the Atlantic.
But like every other country, that depends on how much you've traveled and how internationally aware you are. We have another question from Andrea.
Well, this might be a little bit of more of a personal question. You have been an MEP for nearly 13 years now. So haven't you had any moment of doubt in your career?
I have frustration from time to time because things don't go as I want and they go too slow. But let's say I have Europe in my genes. I come from a village on the German-French border where the border changed 5 times in the last 100 years between Alsace-Lorraine and Germany, and Saarland was part of. My grandfather had 5 passports, 2 French and 3 Germans. And so let's say I saw a border coming after the war and I saw a border going away. And I think Europe is, for me, the big adventure, the big experiment. And it is a historical process to unite on this continent. And so I have not lost my belief in the European idea, but I have from time to time frustrations if I see the behavior of politicians, of parties, of governments, because we are not too quick in European unification. We are at the end too slow.
Do you have any idea, any advice for young people, for example, who start to doubt in the European Union? What should they focus on when this frustration comes?
Now, from 1st of April this year, we have a new instrument of participatory democracy in the EU, the European Citizens' Initiative. This is a new element out of the Lisbon Treaty. So citizens from Portugal to Poland, from Ireland to Cyprus, could really campaign together for an issue they think is very important and bring a point on the agenda in Brussels to the European institutions. So from 1st of April, you really can participate in many ways directly. Then you have all the NGOs. I'm in the Environment Committee. I see all the BirdLife, WWF, Greenpeace. So, of course, if you join any part of the civil society, you are as well present here in Brussels. Alone, of course, it's a bit difficult because how can you change European politics all alone? You have somehow to join an initiative.
Joining is definitely part of making anything change. You have to be part of it. Are there any questions from the audience? I don't see anybody leaping to their feet and about to ask something. Yes, there's one here. Can we get a microphone to the lady in blue?
So, you were just talking about the European Citizens Initiative. Do you think the people will take advantage of that tool that's set up for them?
I am pretty sure. I know that many NGOs are waiting for the 1st of April 2012 to come with their issue. Animal transport, genetically modified organisms, all the renewable energies. There are lots of questions where people feel that not enough is done. And by collecting at least 1 million signatures, this is a powerful, let's say, message to the policymakers. And especially, I think we here in the European Parliament, we certainly will care about successful initiatives to promote this agenda in legislation or in special programs that we need to fulfill the objective.
I have one question from Beatriz Costas Parada. She is from Vigo University in Spain and is a student of communication. She thinks we need most ability to be able to work into other European countries so that they can have more experience. It's much of what we've talked about. But the question is, don't you think in these times of crisis, many of those doors are closed for students to do that move?
Yeah, absolutely. The big danger of this economic financial crisis is that we go backwards and not forwards. You see that in many countries populism is rising and nationalism is rising. And unfortunately, it is the national capitals that are acting and not the European capital in Brussels. It's not the Commission President Barroso who is the main actor. It is Merkel from Germany and Sarkozy from France and then hopefully now Monti from Rome and some others. So it's the national capitals that are the actors and not the European institutions. And we have to bring that back to the community method, where the Commission is the executive, is the government of this EU, and the Parliament and the Council are the legislative bodies. So I think the community method has proven quite good, but the intergovernmental method has its limits. You could see that yesterday on the EU summit, you have not all 27 together, you have only 25. So splitting Europe is a danger of the intergovernmental method. Uniting Europe is the chance of the community method, sticking to the rules that we have agreed in the different European treaties.
Is there any danger that these problems are created really powerfully by government views, by personal almost politicians' views, and not really representing the true feeling of the countries that they are supposed to represent?
Yeah, governments are elected by their people for national interests. They are not elected for European interests. European Parliament is elected for European interests, and any national parliament would defend the national interest. But the really skill is to bring the national interests together to a common European interest where it's necessary. And therefore, my hope is, and my wish is, that we could come to truly European elections. We have not European elections. We have 27 national election campaigns
Yes.
for candidates who won't be member of the European Parliament. But these are not European elections. And just now, we have a report on the table for reforming the European election system with, apart from national candidatures, transnational European lists that are put up by the European political parties. And I think the moment you have to fight for European mandates by political families, by the conservatives, the liberals, the greens, the socialists, by all the others, and we have 11 registered political families in Europe. So there is a wide range of choices citizens could do. In that moment, I would say you get a European audience, you get a European public space. And the question from the internet, how to communicate. You need political communication, which is not happening because every day politics is national, and every 5 years for 4 weeks on the European elections, it's European, and that's not enough anymore.
We have only just a few more minutes. Do you have a further question?
Okay, yes. Why do you need there are people who believe in the EU and in the idea of the European citizenship? And in opposition with them, there are people who are not feeling like being part of the Europe.
Yeah, it is, of course, let's say, not self-evident that you belong to unity, a political unity beyond your national border. This is so new. It is the only, let's say, transnational unity without any blueprint. There is nothing comparable. And many people are anxious. They are fearful. Of course, they don't match with other cultures, other languages, other habits. And I could see that not everybody is happy. But at the end, we had referenda in all member states to belong to the EU. You had not yet a referendum to go out of the EU. And I still trust that no country would at the end want to go out of the EU. So we are in the 21st century where this world gets so small and Europe gets so, let's say, small again. If you look on China, on India, on Brazil, on Africa, we have been 25% of world's population at the beginning of last century. We will be only 5% of world's population in the middle of this century. So let's say any country in Europe doesn't play any role if we not are together as Europe. And there, I would say, we still have a good chance to live as we want to live and to continue our values and our lifestyle.
I think you bring us to a remarkably good conclusion and a place maybe we could, I'm afraid, have to end our debate. Thank you all very much for your questions. Carolina, Robin, Andrea, thank you in particular to our guest, Joe Leinen.
I thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
You certainly brought to us some interesting views and a lot of breadth to that. And I say your long-term experience, as I said at the beginning, was the key element of that. Thank you, the audience, very much for your small participation. And those of us that are remaining here and wish to join, I'm warned that I may tell you that there is a cocktail party afterwards on the first floor. Thank you all very much on the internet, everyone who has watched this debate. It's been a very useful time, and from us here in Euranet, please stay with us, please keep listening and watching, and most important of all, contributing. Thank you.